Welcome to the award-winning fantasy basketball podcast by RotoWire, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy and FanDuel. Today is Friday, January 19th, 2024. Alex Barutha here with Shannon McEwen and Ken K-Train Kreitz.
All aboard.
Let's jump right into the news. The shorthanded Indiana Pacers go to Sacramento and beat the suddenly struggling Kings 126-121. There was no Halliburton, no Nemhard, no Siakam. Our guy, the cockroach, TJ McConnell, 20 points, 10 dimes. Kings got only 16 points off their bench. Harrison Barnes had 2 points and 1 rebound in 22 minutes. Although Kevin Huerter is kind of back. I'm glad Mike Brown realized that Chris Duarte sucks and has just stopped playing him.
Yeah.
And it's just like, let's just give Huerter 39 minutes because, we'd
hot.
rather have that.
Seven triples.
Yeah. Yeah. Shannon, what do you think of this Kings team? They're kind of struggling. Last year was a big sort of breakout year for them in the playoffs. They looked good against Golden State in the first round. They're 23-18 right now. They're kind of in that mix of like New Orleans, Dallas, Phoenix, and kind of like Utah and LA right now.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly hasn't been going as well as it did last year. I think general consensus, or at least in my mind, is they played a little bit above their heads. But 23-18, you're still above 500, 7 games out from the number 1 seed. No one's really running away with the West. I mean, Minnesota looks good, 30 wins, 30-11. But they're still in the mix. I expect the Kings to be in the playoffs. I also don't believe they were as good as they were last year. You could still see them improve from here. They're probably going to be in the market to add some pieces. Keegan Murray has kind of stepped up and claimed that number 3 role, or if you want to say Malik Monk's still the number 3 role, then we'll call Keegan Murray number 4. But he has stepped up. He's having a better year. I think we'll see continued growth from him. So, I mean, if I'm a Kings fan in general, I'm not worried.
4 straight losses. I think they might be playing bound, though. We'll see. Pelicans, Mavs, and Kings fighting for those last 2 spots to avoid the play-in.
Ken, let's go to the Knicks game last night.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson scores 41 on 14 of 27 shooting versus the woeful Wizards. Dante DiVincenzo with 19 points. Guys, should we always bet the over on guard scoring versus this Washington backcourt?
Maybe, yeah, but you buried the lead because Shannon's Marvin Bagley went for 20 and 11 with 2 assists, 2 steals, and 3 blocks. Right. Starting for Daniel Gafford, who has a concussion.
In for Gafford. Right away, like right off the bus from Detroit and starting.
Well, he was the only other center they have on the roster.
Yeah, that exactly. That's what he had working for him, is they just had no other centers. They definitely would have went small. Even I mentioned this on previous shows, but even Gallinari was getting some minutes at the 5 for this Wizards team. So it's not a surprise with Gafford out to see Bagley get 39 minutes. And he is a guy where if he's playing 35 plus minutes, he's going to probably put together a pretty impressive line. I don't think all it does on the fantasy side is cloud Gafford and Bagley's value moving forward, because Gafford had his opportunity the first 40 games of the season and really wasn't able to run away with it. So I expect Bagley will eat into Gafford's time. Gafford was already rarely topping 30 minutes anyways, but Bagley will get some minutes. They'll both get minutes. They might even, swap starts on occasion. And both will have middling, like 14-team value, but 10 and 12-team leagues long-term, I don't expect either to have much value. For the immediate, especially in daily pickup leagues, Bagley obviously is an option while Gafford's out.
How does Moneybags, a professional NBA player, go 0 for 5 from the charity stripe? How does that happen?
I don't know, because he shouldn't be being paid $13 million in the first place. There's a lot of the rest of the team
the rest of the Wizards did not miss a free throw, but Moneybags went 0 for 5. A little box score oddity there. Brunson, though, did light him up. He also had 8 dimes and 8 rebounds and 3 stocks. in daily or wagering, I feel like the guards facing Washington, always a good move. Alex, take us to that exciting game in Utah.
Yeah, the Thunder. They ended Utah's 6-game win streak. Utah has been absolutely on fire. Like one of the top, I think, 5 teams in the NBA over the past month in terms of record. They play really well at home. Colin Sexton is ranked 37th in fantasy over the past 2 weeks. Absolutely cooking, really efficient. I don't know, Ken, do you think this is what I mean? Utah now is 22-21. They're in that kind of mix we talked about with Sacramento, where they're within like 2 games of the 7th seed. It's kind of unclear. Like, are they going to, they wanted Drew Holiday before the season, apparently. Do they go in? Do they go in to try and make a win now? Or are they going to try to sell off some guys? Like, if you have anybody on Utah's roster on your fantasy team, are you panic? Are you like, I got to sell high? Colin Sexton, I'm out. Walker Kessler, I'm buying. I don't know.
I don't know. The Kessler minutes are frustrating as heck. He got 24 off the bench last night. Did have his 3 blocks. I mean, if you need blocks, he's still getting those left and right. Dunn has been a huge part of this turnaround. Before last night, they were 12-2 with Dunn as the starter when he got injected into the starting lineup. That's really the defensive play. They only gave him 13 minutes last night, though, which is odd. I think because they're playing from behind, especially in the second half. But, I like Clarkson. I prefer to have Clarkson coming off the bench, lighting up second teams for points like he did last night. 35 minutes, 18 shot attempts for Clarkson last night. I think he's kind of a buy cheap guy. But, Danny Ainge is probably, I don't know, frustrated by their winning. It's weird, and it screws up the rebuild.
It is a tough one, from that standpoint. I mean, there's tons to take away. Chris Dunn is kind of just that placeholder starter. 13 minutes last night, like Ken said. The most amount of minutes he's played in the past 4 games is 21 minutes, 17, 21, 13. He's been, even when he does play his full allotment of minutes, it's like at peak, it's like 26 minutes as the starter. But it's frustrating for guys if you're stashing Kessler, hoping that he eventually gets those starter minutes, or Keontae George, same thing, especially after Keontae had that stint in the starting lineup prior to his injury. It's tough to know what to do with the way they're performing right now, the way they're winning. I don't think they're just going to sell off all their veterans. They still might move a Clarkson, a Collins, or a Olynyk, but I don't think all 3 are necessarily going to be moved. Whereas a month ago, I would have thought that was going to be the case. But from a fantasy standpoint, I'm holding on most of these guys. I mean, Sexton in particular has just been an absolute beast for this team.
You can't take him out of that starting lineup, can you?
No, absolutely not. I mean, before last night's game, he had a stretch of 13 games as the starter, but he was only playing 24 and a half minutes per game. Absolutely crushing it in those 24 and a half minutes per game. I mean, his per 36 this year is 26 points, 3.9 rebounds, 6 assists, 1.1 steals, 2.2 3-pointers, shooting 49% from the floor, 89% from the line. This is one of the reasons why I was always so high on Sexton, is that efficiency from the guard spot. And he's proving that this year and still doing it, even when he's playing just, 25 to 30 minutes most nights. I'm holding him just in case this run continues and he creeps up, his minutes continue to creep up like the 34 he saw last night.
Well, they have a good amount of money invested in Sexton too. Like when he was traded to Utah, it was on a 4-year, $70 million contract. So it's like they would like for him to, I think, be good. They don't want to just keep him on the bench playing 15 minutes. Okay, let's talk about our friends at Underdog Fantasy. They're the #1 platform for NBA best ball and DFS player pick'em contests. If you haven't tried Underdog yet, new Underdog users receive a first-time deposit bonus up to $100. And even more valuable, a free 6-month subscription to RotoWire with promo code RWNBA. That's promo code RWNBA. Visit UnderdogFantasy.com or download the Underdog app today and use promo code RWNBA to claim your free RotoWire subscription and deposit bonus.
That's code RWNBA. Okay, gentlemen, let's go to the fan feedback. We've got a question from Paul that's rather detailed. He's saying, which of these 2 players should I hold? That includes which 2 do you keep between Duncan Robinson, Alex Caruso, Dante DiVincenzo, Naz Reid, Bruce Brown, and Larry Nance Jr.?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of this is a question of like, are you looking for upside? Which I think I would say you are, because all of these guys are like at the end of your bench. As anybody who listens to this podcast knows, I'm very partial to Naz Reid, mostly because of his upside. And again, how many times are you starting these guys in any given week? So I would say Reid is one of them. Other than that, I mean, I am curious to see what Bruce Brown does in Toronto. You know, I think he has top 80 upside. He's a little disappointing in Indiana. Yep. But I'll defer to you, Shannon, if you have a strong opinion on any of these guys.
For me, Caruso and Dante were the 2 that I immediately defaulted to. They're both top 80 values over the past month. Both are starting for those teams. And unless there's additional moves made, I would expect both to stick in the starting lineup as well. Those are the 2 there. I'm defaulting to Dante and Caruso. Bruce Brown is an interesting guy to see how Toronto does deploy him. But it also seems like they could dangle him in future trades. I don't know if he has a fit immediately in the starting lineup. They started Gary Trent at the 2 last night with Bruce Brown. I believe, was Bruce Brown unavailable or did he play? I
don't think he played.
Yeah, I think he might have been unavailable. So, you know, I want to see, do they put Bruce Brown in that starting 2 spot? That could add him to the mix, but right now it's Dante and Caruso for me.
Oh, he did play. There was some confusion about it. He did end up playing. 15 points, 7 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal in 25 minutes.
Yeah, a lot of minutes off the bench. I don't know whether the bench is, will continue or if he'll start, as Shannon mentioned.
I mean, their bench is terrible regardless. Like, they could play him 35 minutes off the bench because who else is there? So,
yeah. All right. Next question about Memphis. Would you guys add good old Salty Aldama? Oh boy, I butchered that one. In a 12-team league, generally referring to all those injuries in Memphis.
Maybe it's hard to say. He's very fringe. Like, I think his upside, I don't think is particularly high. In a points league, you need him to get at least 25 minutes a game consistently, I think, for it to be worth it. And even then, kind of borderline.
Came off the bench last night, did not start.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a fine ad and then see what happens. But if he's not seeing 25 minutes consistently, it's not worth it.
Yeah, with the Grizzlies, someone has to play, someone has to get minutes. He saw those 25 minutes last night. His offensive rating was 74%, not great, but he had 13 points, 5 rebounds, 1 block, 1 steal, a couple 3-pointers. I'm interested to see if he can carve out 25 to 30 minutes. I think he'll earn a 12-team role. That's to be determined. I'm fine grabbing him, stashing him. If you need threes in particular, and you have room on your bench, you have a cuttable player right now, then I think Aldama's worth a look in many 12-teamers.
All right, and one last one, gentlemen. Should I hold Luke Kennard or Gigi Jackson going forward in a points league?
Well, we're going to talk about both those guys later. So basically right now. So stick around for another 5 minutes, and we will talk about both of those guys.
All right. That's it for the fan feedback section.
Let's jump into the waiver wire, how this works. Each of the 3 of us have 2 regular waiver wire pickups, guys rostering in less than 50% of leagues, and then a long shot, guys rostering 25% or fewer of leagues. Busy week next week. 12 teams with 4 games. The rest have 3 games. No 2-game weeks. So just keep that in mind. My first waiver wire suggestion, it's going to come with a lot of caveats. So don't take this blindly. Gigi Jackson from Memphis, 36% rostered. Here's the story. Okay. He was the number 1 ranked player in the 2023 high school class. He reclassified to 2022 and play against South Carolina last year. He sucked. He was terrible. He scored 15 points a game on 38, 32, 68 shooting. He had more than twice as many turnovers to assists, 2.7 turnovers to 0.8 assists. Terrible. He dropped to the 45th pick in the draft this year and signed a two-way deal. So he's been playing in the G League. Okay. And he was fine. 50% shooting, 19 points a game in 6 appearances. But then, Coach Taylor Jenkins is like, hey, look, everybody on this team is hurt. We have no playmakers. The one thing GG Jackson does is he puts the ball in the basket, or at least is able to get the ball in the air towards the basket. So he played him 27 minutes. He scored 20 points, 6 rebounds. Played him 29 minutes. The next game, 23 points, 6 rebounds. Great. Good efficiency. Shocking. Last game, yesterday against Minnesota, tough matchup. 10 minutes for GG Jackson. 1.3 rebounds, over 3, not foul trouble. He had 2 fouls. What do you make of this?
Versus the best defense in the league.
Sure. What do you make of this? I have no idea. Look, one of these games, John Conchar did not play. He was just a DMP. Very bizarre. The next game, I think it was Aldama. One of the other games, Aldama was out. Okay. So my caveat with this is, look, Memphis has 4 games next week. So if you pick him up and he sees like 15 minutes, it's not going to be great, but it's not going to be like the end of your fantasy team. I would just see what happens tomorrow. Memphis plays Chicago. If GG Jackson plays 10, 12, 13 minutes again, I'm just out. Look, this guy, again, 38% shooting in college, 2.7 turnovers, 0.8 assists. If he plays 13 minutes a game, I'm just out. If he plays 25 minutes, maybe even 22 minutes, 4-game week next week, we all know the injury situation. It's fine to go in and see what happens. That's my spiel.
Yeah, 10-teamers, I think you can safely avoid for now and wait to see how things play out. Deep 12-teamers, I think he's worth a stash if you have room, but don't cut a player who's actively contributing to your team right now.
Yes. Ken, take us to another sort of interesting option off the waiver wire.
Yeah, Shannon and I both wanted to discuss him today. Shannon was gracious and let him stay on my list. Wendell Carter Jr., center for your Orlando Magic. His rostership did go up last night. I had him at 53% yesterday. He's up to 58%. Back from injury again. He had missed 5 straight games with a reoccurring knee issue. For now, coming off the bench with Goga Batazzi starting. But hey, Wednesday night, Carter, 18 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 stocks, which is nice to see because traditionally has not been good at the steals and blocks. Anyway, in 24 minutes, I'm on that continual quest for my third center on a few teams. Only negative is Orlando has 3 games next week, not 4, but kind of assume that Carter is going to gradually earn the bulk of center minutes on this Magic squad.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he eventually reclaims the starting role. That's the role they expected him to have at the beginning of the season and the role he had in past years. His biggest question mark is just, can he stay healthy? So I like Carter. I think he's going to see his role uptick here in the coming weeks. I'm going to move on to my first waiver wire suggestion, and it's an old favorite of the show, Mason Plumlee. He's got to be up there, one of the leaders in mentions in our waiver wire segments over the last handful of years. Zubac for the Clippers. Zubac is out with a calf injury for at least 4 weeks. At least 4 weeks is what the report says. And in his place, Mason Plumlee has stepped in the starting lineup, earned a start against the Thunder on January 16th, 28 minutes, 14 points, 5 rebounds, 3 blocks. We know what Mason Plumlee can offer. He can get you some blocks, not a lot, but if he's playing 25 minutes, he might creep up towards 1 block per game. He can get you some rebounds and maybe get you 10, 11 points per game. That's about it. But if that holds value in your league, I think he's going to be there for the next month.
Used to be a good assist guy for a center too, but I think that's fading as he's not allowed to touch the ball with all those starts.
Well, it's tough when James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Paul George are on your team. There's only so much you're going to touch the ball.
Yeah, right. Can you imagine the epic battles they're having in practice in LA with Daniel Tice and Mason Plumlee just going at it? We need some spy cam on that practice footage.
I like the suggestion, Shannon. Like you mentioned, we all know what he can do when he gets the minutes. So it's good ad. My next suggestion off the waiver wire, he's back, baby. Jeremy Sochan, San Antonio Spurs, 44% rostered. He's back to playing his real position. Look what happens. Ranked 94th over the past 2 weeks, which, again, not that exciting. But compared to what he was doing at point guard when we all dropped him, this is better. So I said 94th over the past 2 weeks, but I got a 12-game sample where he's averaging 12.9 points, 5.8 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 1.4 stocks in 30 minutes a game, which is good because his minutes were up and down a little bit too.
Yeah.
Earlier in the season. Shooting very efficiently, 46, 41, 85. Three-point shooting is awesome. He's taking about 3 a game. The free throw shooting, one hand, awesome. Love it. Spurs with 4 games next week. So I'm willing to just buy in and just, he's definitely a stream. Definitely a stream for this week. We'll see what happens after that.
Nice to see his percentages improving as he returns back to his regular position because they were getting a little scary low there during the point guard experiment.
Yeah, he's just such a great compliment off of Wembanyama at the 4. And it's like, why would you? I don't know. We've done this whole bit already. We don't have to. They've moved on.
All right. Well, I'm going to continue the theme of cranky old centers. And I'm going to repeat somebody from last week, but he's playing well and no one's rostering him. Xavier Tillman, 25-year-old center for your Memphis Grizzlies. Again, Memphis, a team struggling to put a lineup out there because of so many injuries. Tillman's starting and playing huge minutes. He's the only legitimate center on this Grizzly roster. I know I sound like a broken record, but his roster percentage is just too low at 38%. Thursday night, he played 36 minutes, 10 points, 5 boards, 6 dimes, and 2 stocks. Look, last 4 starts, 11 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2.3 steals and 1.5 blocks. Yes, he has a bad free throw percentage like Plumlee, but like Plumlee, he also takes very few free throw attempts. And Memphis has 4 games next week. So a lot of streaming old guy center options this week.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Absolutely. And with Tillman, it's going to be him or Aldama. It's not going to be both, right? It's probably going to be one of the two. Right now it's Tillman, so he's the guy to ride. I can't believe that he's only rostered in 38% of leagues after the past week he's had.
Criminal.
Yeah, we need like a broken record section of the waiver wire where it's like there's just 5 guys who we just would suggest every week when they're under 50%. Tillman's stats are funny too because it's like he has 20 of them. But you don't know what category they're coming in. You could just like roll 5 dice and be like, oh, sweet. 9 rebounds, 1 point, 4 steals, a block. It's kind of bizarre, but he's a good option. Shannon, who is your next waiver wire pickup?
Well, this is a guy we've talked about this year as well, mostly in a negative light. Andrew Wiggins, Golden State Warriors, 53% rostered on Yahoo. He's been frustrating this year, probably having, if not the worst season of his career, one of the worst. But he's showing signs of life. Over the past 3 games, all 3 starts, which it's been a couple months, he hasn't started 3 games in a row since early December. 3 starts in a row, and these past 3 games also mark the first time this season he has played 30 minutes or more in 3 consecutive games. That's really the most encouraging part of it. Over that 3-game stretch, 31 minutes, 13.3 points, 14.7 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1 block, 1 3-pointer made. We know, like Plumlee, we know what Andrew Wiggins can do. That's 12-team value, most 12-teamers at least, if you're kind of a standard 12-team roster size. That's good enough value. He's creeping up, 102 ranked player over the past week. So he's creeping up in value. And I think he's worth playing and plugging into your lineup until the Warriors decide to switch up the rotation or their starting lineup again.
Yeah, you mentioned it. I mean, when he's played, there's been 7 games this year where he's played over 30 minutes. He's averaging 18, 5, and 3 in those games. So you mentioned it with the minutes. Minutes and performance are always good indicators of fantasy value. Sometimes the minutes come before the performance, or the performance come before the minutes. But yeah, I think you mentioned he's 53% rostered. I think some of the more competitive leagues, it's probably less. I think his roster percentage is probably a little sticky from some dead leagues that are out there. So yeah, I think that's a good suggestion for a pickup. My last suggestion. We made this user who asked about Kennard and GG Jackson wait this long. I'm sorry, sir. I know you have work to do. Luke Kennard of the Memphis Grizzlies, 19% rostered is my long shot. He started the past 6 games. Over the past 5, he's averaged 13.6 points, 3.8 boards and rebounds each, or boards and assists each. 3 steals. I can't talk. 3 threes. You know what Luke Kennard does? He hits threes. I don't have to tell you that. Memphis has 4 games next week. Really good chance you get 12 threes out of him. I think he'll continue starting. As to the guy, our listener who asked Jackson or Kennard, the safest option is Kennard. The high upside option is Jackson, but hopefully you don't have to make that decision before tomorrow. See what happens tomorrow with Jackson's minutes. And then, but I assume Kennard's going to continue playing upper 20s to low 30s the rest of the season.
Someone has to play for Memphis, right? Like they're legally.
We're really at that point in the season. Like I was looking at some of the, the rankings over the past 2 weeks, and I'm like, oh, we're here. There's a lot of names on this list. I'm like, oh, okay, Chris Dunn is back. Luke Kennard is back. Mason Plumlee's back. It must be mid-January.
Well, I struggled to find a long shot. So instead, I kind of wanted to flag a guy to watch. And Alex, you made the same mention. And that's Bruce Brown, now a Toronto Raptor after that Pascal Siakam trade. Brown's rostered in 63% of leagues, but I think that might go down as people somehow might think his role in Toronto is going to decrease. But hey, he came off the bench last night in his debut, played 25 minutes, 15 points, 7 boards, 1 triple, 1 steal. Look, this is who he's competing with for minutes. Jordan Nwora, Gary Trent, Chris Boucher, and Grady Dick. That's not exactly the 1990s Chicago Bulls there. I think Brown ought to be able to easily carve out 25 to 27 minutes a night. Toronto only has 3 games next week. So I think a lot of folks might drop Brown over the next few days. And I'd say keep an eye out for him and pick him up. I think he will be value rest of season.
Good suggestion, Ken. My long shot of the week is Jabari Walker, forward for the Portland Trailblazers, rostered in 16% of Yahoo leagues. Walker has made back-to-back starts for Portland. Kamara, who had been starting as small forward, is out of the starting lineup. And we've got Shaden Sharp, who's out for, I think, the next 10 days to 2 weeks. Right now, for as long as Jabari Walker's in the starting lineup, seeing a healthy amount of minutes, I think he's worth a look in 12 and 14 team leagues. Over those 2 starts, he has played 29.5 minutes, averages of 7.5 points, 7 rebounds, and 1.5 3-pointers. Not much else. It does look like he can hit some threes. He can get some steals based on his per 36 numbers for the year. It's at 1.3 steals, 1 3-pointer, 48.8% from the floor, 77% from the line. So he doesn't really hurt you in those 2 categories. He's worth a look. Samaki Walker's son, I believe. Give him a look.
Walker, go ahead.
Go ahead, Alex. No, go ahead. Sir.
Oh, well, I mean, 2 days ago on Wednesday, I wrote an article about like guys to target if you're rebuilding in dynasty leagues. And Walker was one of the guys who just missed the cut for like deep leagues for me. I took a look at his stats. Like Shannon mentioned, really interesting stat line. Averages also like 3 offensive. He's a great offensive rebounder, 3 offensive rebounds per 36. I don't think you mentioned his free throws. Shannon, 4.3 free throw attempts per 36 was a great number for a guy who it's his second year in the league, doesn't get a ton of usage. and is also taking threes and is also getting offensive rebounds. Those three things are really tough to do all together. It's just a really active player. Obviously, Portland's not doing well at all. They could be tanking later down the stretch. You might be able to add Walker and get more value in March if you're able to hold on to him for longer. So that's a good suggestion.
And his first start of these back-to-back, first start was in place Jeremy Grant. Second start, they slid Jeremy Grant to the small forward position and started Grant at the 4 and started Walker at the 4. DeAndre Ayton is probable for Friday night's matchup, so their starting lineup could change again. And it's worth keeping an eye on things in Portland because I think it's going to be fluid for most of the remainder of the season. But I like Walker while he's starting.
And they got to trade Malcolm Brogdon for picks. And I know Brogdon's, backcourt, but still, they move Brogdon. That opens up minutes for everybody, including Walker.
Yep. I think that wraps it up for our waiver wire segment, Ken, right?
That does. That is the end of the waiver wire segment. And now let's talk about our good friends at FanDuel. Tackle millions in prizes all NFL playoffs long in FanDuel fantasy contests. If you're new to fantasy, there is no better time to get in on the action because right now, new customers get a 100% deposit match of up to $100 on FanDuel DFS. Playing fantasy for huge cash prizes on FanDuel is fun and exciting. Just draft your lineup and watch your team move up the leaderboard. Now, for this week's playoff action, I know I'm all in on Baker Mayfield against this Detroit Lions defense, but Shannon, who are you looking at?
Oh, for football? Oh, I don't know who I'm looking at on the football side. Yeah, I'm too worried about the Friday night NBA slate, Ken.
Hell yeah.
Go there, brother.
You know how I go. Come on.
Football? What is the shade? Why is it like an egg? What is that?
I have been handed
doesn't bounce.
I have been handed some script to read, and I am reading it.
Let me tell you, for basketball, the Friday night basketball slate,
we have an entire section to talk about your Friday DFS picks, which is coming up.
Give me Nick Claxton. Give me Jabari Walker. All right. For football, of course, I want the Lions. I'm going to go as a homer. I'm going to pick some Lions because I know they're going to stomp the Bucks, and I'm going to pick some Packers because I'm wishfully hoping for the Pack to beat the Niners, so the Lions have an additional home game in the postseason. If the Lions, and then it's Lions to the Super Bowl, baby.
Okay, excellent. Get back to preparing for your FanDuel DFS Friday night picks, which is coming up next. I will get back to the ad copy. Plus, on FanDuel, you can choose from full slate contests featuring multiple games, single game contests, season-long best ball contests, beginner-only contests, which are great for learning the ropes, and more. And when you win, you get paid instantly. So kick off the football playoffs with a 100% deposit matchup which is match up to $100. Go to FanDuel.com to start playing for huge cash prizes today.
That is exactly what would happen, by the way, if I got asked to do like an NFL hit somewhere. They'd be like, "Who do you like in the upcoming playoff game?" I'd be like, and I think that Nick Claxton's actually going to have a pretty big night. Brooklyn, they really need him tonight. So against AD, yeah.
Luckily, gentlemen, you each have an entire segment, as we do every week, to discuss your Friday FanDuel DFS picks. It's a 7-game slate tonight, Friday the 19th, and the highest over-under is Indiana at Portland. Though it's not that high, it's 238.5 points. Take it away, boys.
It is high, but we've become desensitized to numbers under 240 at this point. So it doesn't even register. As always, for injury updates, which are extremely fluid throughout the day, check the RotoWire lineups page, check the RotoWire injury page. I will say of massive note, Victor Wembanyama will not play tonight. I assume, Shannon, that opens up some value on San Antonio for you against a horrible Charlotte Hornets team who I believe has one win in the past 30 days.
They're not good. They're not good. There's a lot of very bad teams, starting with my Pistons, the former Bobcats, the Wizards, lots of garbage teams in the NBA this season. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Victor Wembanyama being out, of course, creates some value for San Antonio. Where that value is kind of hard to determine right now because Zach Collins might be making a return for Friday night slate. He's been deemed questionable with his ankle injury. He has been out since December 29th was the last time he played. If Collins is active, there's a good chance he'll have a limited role. He might get the starting nod, but I would be surprised if he plays more than 22 to 24 minutes. And with that makes him tough to deploy in a fantasy lineup on my end. You have Barlow's the other option, but he had a spot start for Wemby about a week ago and didn't really impress. So there's going to be players like Vassell, your boy Sochan, who will be options and are decent values on both DFS sites, FanDuel and DraftKings.
Yeah, we have the on-off court stats stuff. It's on our daily lineups page if you just need a quick fix. Keldon Johnson sees the highest usage rate with Wembanyama off the court. Highest usage rate increase, I should say, up to 27%. It's a 7% increase compared to when Wembanyama is on the court. So that's an option as well. We know they need some scoring. Let's see. We also have DeAnthony Melton out for Philly. He's been out for a while. Maybe some more for Kelly Oubre. We're not sure about Jaquez. I think he's doubtful for this upcoming game for Miami. So there's going to be some extra lineup stuff going on there. Shannon mentioned Ayton probable for tonight's game. So that's interesting. And then everything else is pretty chalky on the injury side. So besides, that Wembanyama situation, where are you turning, Shannon?
Yeah, with Jaquez most likely out, I do think Martin will see more value with the Heat. He's probably going to be coming off the bench, but he's 5,500 tonight, which is just a manageable salary to get into your lineup. I really like the Indiana-Portland game. No big surprise there. I actually, and if I were betting, I would bet the over. It's kind of to be determined what's going to happen with the starting lineup for both teams, because right now, basically you've got half of Indiana's team is questionable, including Halliburton, Nembhard, Naismith, Siakam. If those guys are ruled out again, they all sat out on Thursday night. If they're all ruled out again, that brings TJ McConnell, Buddy Hield, Mathurin, Miles Turner, Jalen Smith, all of them would be options. On the Portland side, Jeremy Grant's under 7,000 on DraftKings, I believe. Simons, who's coming off a big game, he's a good value. Jabari Walker, we talked about ad nauseum already this episode. I'm staying away from Ayton because I don't expect big minutes in his return to action.
Yeah, Indiana, terrible transition defense team. So you should probably expect guys like Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons to get out and run in this game. Let's see here. We have, Embiid versus Orlando, I think is a spot where people are going to look, right? Because Embiid is going to be going up against Goga Bitadze, Wendell Carter, who, again, we mentioned have been playing well, but I think it's going to be a struggle for them. Probably a lot of double teams coming Embiid's way. For me, that might be like a points plus assists play on like a pick'em site like Underdog. But on FanDuel, I think he's going to be a good value as well. Where else are you turning, Shannon?
Yeah, a couple of the higher price guys or big name players who I think are just solid values tonight. Mikal Bridges for the Nets, he's questionable. Actually listing is probable, so I expect him to play against the Lakers. He's been turning up and has been better the last few games. I expect him to be a decent value tonight. And then my boy Zion Williamson, the price is just right for him for DFS. I really, really like him. He's 7,700 on FanDuel, in that same range on DraftKings. When he plays, he's pretty much a lock to approach 40 fantasy points, and he has the upside where he can have a 50 or 60 point game. I'll take that safe floor, he is active. It should be a competitive game. Not really seeing a blowout potential in that one. So with that, I love Zion as kind of that safe floor, upside for a lot more, and a decent salary.
Let's see. Ken, we have your Boston Celtics on the slate. Any insights for us going up against the Denver Nuggets?
Denver. I mean, is this a finals preview, gentlemen? Let's see. I don't know. No, I mean, thank goodness they're healthy again. So it's good to see the big five all back from Boston. But that creates the DFS dilemma of who of all this star-studded top five lineup is going to bust out. Really, same thing for Denver in that they have no bench. All starters have to play ridiculous minutes. But I'd say D. White's due for a breakthrough. He's been a little quiet as of late. That's maybe betting with my heart, not my wallet. But always love me some D. White. Also, public service announcement. Remember that Dallas and Golden State has been postponed tonight due to the very unfortunate passing of a Golden State Warrior assistant coach. So either in your daily move leagues or your DFS work, remember, no Mavericks, no Warriors playing tonight.
Very good note, Ken. I think, Shannon, unless you have any parting words, I think that can wrap up our DFS segment.
Good to move forward.
Okay, Ken, we have an old man rant that sometimes I don't know what to expect. I'm excited to see this because it's something I've also felt like I need to get off my chest for a number of years.
Arg! Patrick Williams stinks. He stinks. The Bulls lottery bust has the audacity to expect a $20 million a year, 5-year extension as reported back in October. The guy was picked 4th overall in the 2020 draft. Now in his 4th season, he's averaging less than 10 points and less than 4 rebounds per game. Last night, he played 23 minutes off the bench versus a depleted Raptors team. In those 23 minutes, Williams gathered 0 rebounds, 0 steals, and 0 blocks in 23 minutes. Plus, he's got that odd thing going on with his hair. You're a millionaire, man. Fix that. Williams is a bum. The Bulls should run him out of town. Arrgh.
He is a role player, and not a very good one. I think, in fantasy, we talk a lot about guys who you think are going to be good or who are set for a breakout versus is that really what's going to happen, or do you just want them to be? Like, do you just want Patrick Williams to be good? And I think it's given us enough sample size at this point. No, the extension is crazy. I mean, at best he's the 5th starter on a very good team at best. I would
go ahead.
If he wasn't picked 4th overall, I don't think he would be viewed through the same lens. If he was picked 24th overall, for instance, I don't think we would view Patrick Williams through the same lens.
True.
But the contract demands $20 million a year for that terrible production are just unacceptable.
Yeah, maybe that's his way of being like, you know what, just get me out of here. Please don't sign me, Chicago. I want to go elsewhere. Okay, mispronounced names. I didn't type this in, but I see Asante Aldama.
I think I stumbled on it. I just stumbled a little. I apologize.
Yeah, you may have said Salty Aldama, which I'm salty when he doesn't play 30 minutes a game.
Well, I thought Salty was Shannon's nickname for him, and then I lost confidence because I couldn't remember if it was a fun nickname or was his real name, and then I stumbled. And, I apologize to the larger Aldama family. My apologies.
Yes. Okay, everybody. Thank you for joining us on the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast presented by Underdog and FanDuel. Ken, take us out of here.
Well, hey, let's go to Utah, where OKC got the win last night. Did you know that Jalen Williams is now nicknamed 4th quarter dub? I didn't know that till last night. It's good. Here's what Coach Mark Dagno said about him after the win over the Jazz, where Williams scored 27 points. Quote, "The guy lines up and guards a premier matchup every night. And for him to be able to do that offensively and do that defensively is a very complete game. It's very impressive." Attention passengers. This 3-car fantasy train wreck has hit the end of the line.